idea of the whole propagation of info goes through the receptor, then the part of the afferent neuron, and then the portion of a CNS. What does mean the CNS? We talk about particularly the brain, yes, although we also do have a portion of the spinal cord here, because spinal cord is still a part of the CNS, sure. But here we talk about the cortex, particularly the layers of the cortex, which I will explain today. What are the layers which are receiving this information, and then what are the layers which are making the synapses with the other parts of the cerebrum, so the portion of the brain, to give us the information to understand what type of the modalities. Sorry. Everything you explain in the live, you upload on the online lecture about them, right? You mean here? Yes, this thing will be uploaded. Anything what we are recording, we are everything uploading, so no problem. Yes, so in this case, what do we have here is that this is the main idea how the information is propagated. We've talked about the type of receptors. Do you remember? We said that we have mechano, we said that we have the thermoreceptors, we said that we have nociceptors, which are the pain receptors, the electromagnetic receptors, as well as the chemoreceptors. Yes, I will not stop too much on that because you remember this particular information and we have covered it. So here it comes the idea of what are the senses, that these are the modalities, and what type of modalities do we have, and what is the most important thing that there is that each nerve tract which is propagating the sensory information, as you can see, terminates at particular point of the central nervous system, particularly the cortex. And as a result, it literally, according to that, we can identify where can we feel or this particular modality or this particular sensory information. So let's see what does it mean and how it goes through. So here comes the part of the mechanism of the receptors and so on. I will not stop here that much because it's already clear. But then it comes the part of the somatic sensations, with a part of it tactile and position senses first. That's what we'll talk about more in the details. I told you that we will do that. So here comes the idea that all of the somatic senses can be classified into the several, such as, for example, the very first one is the mechanoreceptive type of the somatic senses, yes? So which means that we are talking about the tactile type and position type of the senses. That's what we'll talk right now about. As well as we do have the thermoreceptive senses. I do believe it's clear it's the part of a temperature, as well as that we have the part of a pain. So the tactile senses, as you can see here, they include touch, pressure, vibration, and the tickle senses even. So all of these particularly, plus the position senses, that's what we are talking right now about. So we do have, according to like these type of senses, we can feel from different parts of the body or on different parts of the body, yes? This is the surface and this is the internal regions. As a result, when we talk about the surface of the body and the senses from the surface of the body, such as skin, subcutaneous tissue, for example, yes, in this case, we're talking about the exteroreceptive type of the sensations. So I do believe it's clear why we call it like that. Exteroreceptive, so outside of the body or on the surface of the body. As well as we do have the proprioceptive type of sensations, as you can see, which are mainly related to the state of the body in the space, yes? So where do we have our body, how it is, what particular, what particular position it is, to say correctly, yes, in this case. So as a result, that's why we say including the position sensors are here, which are coming from the tendon and the muscle sensations. So you can see here the part of the pressure sensors also from the bottom of the feet, for example, and also the part of the equilibrium, which is also used, although we consider the part of the equilibrium as the special sense most commonly. So right now what we are talking about the general senses, somatic general senses, okay? So that's why when we talk about the equilibrium, it is sometimes classified as the special type of senses or also a part of the somatic senses. Now, what do we have here? That we do have the part of the visceral sensation. So we said we have exteroreceptors, outside of the body, and we do have a portion of the visceral sensations. The word viscera literally means internal organs, okay? So as a result, the senses from the internal parts of the body, these are the ones which we call the visceral sensations. And that's where we can simply also feel the part of the, I don't know, pain, temperature, and so on. In a part of the fascia, muscles, and the tone, we do have the deep type of the senses. So we can subdivide them, such as, for example, simply the pain in a case of bony structures. Yes, we do have the periosteum, which is surrounding the part of the bone. Sure, it is full of nerve endings, and particularly these nerve endings are propagating the information about the pain. As well as you can see, we do have the sensations or modalities of the pressure, as well as we do have the modalities of the vibration. This is clear, I do believe, or not? Just ask me the questions if you have the questions about this part. If not, I will go through. I never tell you that it's enough to study from the presentations, okay? I just always put the most important parts into the presentations, although most commonly my presentations are literally used as the handouts, because I put literally approximately the whole information. But no, you will need still to read the textbook. Any other questions? Okay, let's continue. And we are coming back again to the idea: receptor, afferent neuron, and a CNS. So we will talk right now about 3 of these parts in the details. So starting with the first part, where we do have a portion of the receptors. So we said about that there are different types of receptors and so on, like mechanoreceptors and so on. So when we talk about the tactile receptors, I do believe you remember that we are, this is from the chapter, I will tell you. Here it is in the Guyton. Doesn't matter what number it is, just this is how it looks like. Somatic sensation number 1, general organization, tactile position, and senses. So this portion is what we'll talk today about. And I will also talk about the next chapter, where we do, it's a small chapter, nothing too much to talk about here. And then we do have a part of the pain sensations, thermal sensation, and the part of the clinical correlation, such as headache. That's what we'll go through it. This is the Guyton. This is everything according to your syllabus, guys. So a tactile receptors, which you see particularly here, they are different. So starting with the very first one, which is the most simple, let's say like that. You're welcome. So most simple, as you can see, and these are free nerve endings. So what are the free nerve endings? What does it mean? I do believe it's clear that we are talking about just simply the endings of the axons, this arborization of the axons, and as a result, we have it most commonly in the part of the skin, also some subcutaneous tissue, and most commonly, what I want you to remember for the midterm examination is that in a case of free nerve endings, most commonly we are detecting the touch and pressure. The touch and pressure. Yes. So as a result, you can see that this portion of the detection of the touch and pressure, this is particularly for the free nerve endings. So the good example of the free nerve endings is, for example, not only on the skin, as we said, yes, but also on the surfaces which are exposed to the environment, such as the cornea of the eye. What is the cornea? This is the outermost layer. This is 1/5 of the eye that we have, and it normally contains the very small amount of the nerve endings. But that's the idea. It doesn't have any other type of the complex, receptors. Just simply the innervation with the free nerve endings. And as a result, here we can simply identify this. By the way, the corneal reflex is the one which we are using in the case of the identification if the patient is conscious or not sometimes, or how deep is the unconsciousness in this case, because most commonly if the patient can speak with you and so on, okay, it's clear that there is awareness and so on. But when there is no verbal contact and most of the physical contact, the thing what we are doing, we are rechecking the cornea for the reflex. What does it mean? It means that there should be for sure the sensory nerve endings. And as a result, in this case, we do have the free nerve endings. It's also very clear anatomically why it is like that, because normally the cornea should be transparent. Yes, it doesn't even contain the blood vessels. So, and the only way how the cornea can be supplied by the nutrients, this is by the fluid which we have between the portion of the cornea and the part of the iris. So as a result, that's what we call aqueous humor. So mainly the whole blood supply, sorry, not blood supply, but nutrient supply is coming from that particular transparent fluid rather than the blood vessels itself. Why? Because cornea should be transparent, because the light which is entering towards the eye is refracting here, and this is one of the ways places where it is refracting, and as a result we do have the image on the retina. But whatever, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Just a second, please. Just a second, I have some technical part. Just a Okay, so to continue here, as I said, like in the part of the free nerve endings, it was more or less clear. In the next portion, what do we have here? This is the other types of a touch receptors, which we call the Meissner's corpuscles. According to the name, it's already clear that they should be very much complex type, yes, of the receptors. And what is the most interesting part here is that what type of the fiber is taking place from the Meissner's corpuscles. And as you can see here, particularly, these are large type A beta. Do you remember? These are the myelinated sensory nerve fibers. Do you remember that particular yes, here it is. I told you, this is the, yes, this is particularly the table of the information, as you can see, about the different types of the nerve fibers according to their myelination level, as well as the conduction velocity, as well as the part of a diameter, and so on. So when we said about A beta, as you can see here, according to the general classification, you can see that these are large, and these are myelinated type of the nerve fibers. Yes. So going back here again to the what I was talking about, where it is, I was talking about the Meissner's corpuscles. So as you can see, what I want you to remember, what the Meissner corpuscle, what type of a receptor it is, that it's a touch receptor that is encapsulated, and I want you to remember what type of a nerve fiber is passing or originating from that particular receptor. Okay, so important thing, where we can have it, this type of the touch receptors, and this is glabrous skin, meaning that without hair. So simply when we talk about the part of the palmar region, yes, the fingertips of the hand, the fingertips you can see here, the part of the lips, for example, and so on. So anywhere where we have non-hairy or glabrous type of the skin, that's where particularly we'll have the Meissner's corpuscle, and they will be detecting the touch. So you can see that according to the adaptation features, the type of the Meissner's corpuscle, as most of the tactile receptors, will be adapting very fastly, as you can see here, and approximately the fraction of the second is needed for the adaptation of that particular receptors. To continue with the next type of receptor which we have here, this is the Merkel's disc receptors, as you can see, also known as expanded tip tactile receptors. I want you to know the names for sure. And here compared, again, it's a tactile receptor, yes? But here compared to the Meissner's one, which was Meissner's corpuscle, was seen in a case of the glabrous skin. In this case, we have it in the hairy parts of the skin, as you can see here, okay? So, as you can see, in the case of the Merkel's disc, it's most interesting part here that transmission, as you can see, is very strong at the beginning. Then it starts to adapt, although it's a partial adaptation. Then you see that it becomes more weaker and weaker, so propagation of the stimuli in this case. But most commonly, the adaptation is so slow that before the next, so it may not even adapt before the next stimuli. As a result, you can see that like when we do have particular objects on the skin, okay, most commonly the hairy skin that we have on the body, you can see that it gives rise to steady state signals that allows us to identify the continuous touch, okay, of particular objects against the skin. All right. So as a result, the Merkel's disc compared to the Meissner's, simply, I'm interested, where do we have it? This is very much important for me to remember, okay? Now, the Merkel's discs, as you can see here, are most commonly represented as the grouped structure. So many of these Merkel discs together, and that's what we call the ego-dome receptors, as you can see. So ego-dome receptors, meaning that they literally have like a projection into the portion of the epithelium, okay? So as the result, because there are, imagine, many receptors in one small area, yes? As a result, we can say that it's a literally extremely sensitive type of the region with the where we do have the ego-dome. And as a result, when we said about the Meissner's corpuscles, yes, we said that it was in the glabrous skin, it was the touch, okay? And it was particularly propagating the impulse through the large A beta type of the nerve fibers. In a case of the Merkel's disc, as well as the ego-dome shaped receptors, because ego-dome receptor is the same Merkel disc, just in the in a large amount. To be honest, if I remember correctly, here we have some pictures of that. Just a second. If I remember correctly, we do have some pictures in this part about the different types of them. Oh, unfortunately not. But it's okay, because as I know, for the integration of this information, when you're covering the portion of the skin, when you will be covering the portion of the skin in the histology, you will see there particularly every niche of this receptor, and you will know exactly what they are composed of, and so much deeper information at the microscopic level. In this case, I'm interested, what is the function and what type of the modality it is propagating, okay? So as a result, it's extremely sensitive, yes, as well as we do have the propagation of stimuli through the large myelinated type of the neurons, as we said, A beta. The same type was in the case of the Meissner's corpuscles, yes? So as a result, together, because they have approximately everything in the same, yes, but except for the adaptation. As a result, in the part of the Merkel's disc and the ego-dome receptor, plus the Meissner's corpuscles together, they are giving rise to the continuous, let's like that, information, which gives us the information about the touch, and important thing, the localization of the touch. Where do we have it? It is very specific in this case, okay? So that's why when we are talking about the propagation of the touch and pressure, in this case, it's important to remember that the receptors which we have in the different places are also giving us a specificity of the modalities, you know? So then an important thing here, the most important thing, that okay, we understand the touch, but important thing also that the touch, in this case, what type of the object it was, what was the texture, yes, of this object, can you imagine, is also felt with the help of these two types of receptors. So it's a very, very delicate and discrete type of the information which can be propagated through the tactile receptors, such as Merkel or ego dome shape, particularly where we have this aggregation of the Merkel, as well as the Meissner's type of the corpuscles. And I do believe it's clear if we talk about the glabrous skin, and particularly in the region of the hand, which is very, very accurate, which is very discrete. Yes, in this case, sure, this type of the function is already, let's like that, expected to be. The next type of receptors that we have, these are hair and organ receptors, which are also representing for us the part of the touch receptors, as you can see. So here what is happening that we do have, first of all, we have it in all of the places where we do have a hairy portion, and particularly we have it at the part, or at the basal or base part of the hair. So it will be a large hair, which we are talking about on the head and so on, or it will be simply on the body, on the hairy parts of the body. And here you can see that mainly it is adapting very fastly, as you can see, and its main function to detect important things. Like imagine that when someone is simply like caressing, yes, the part of the body, you can feel how the object is moving against the part or on the surface of the body. Or simply when, I don't know, the mosquito sits, yes, on the skin, or for example the fly and so on. So we can feel even that small structures, we can feel very well as they are moving on the surface of the body. Okay, and sure, the initial contact with the body is also here very much dependent on the very first type of the very superficially localized type of the receptors, which are hair and organs, as are represented at the base of every type of the hair. The next type of receptors, which I also want you to remember, these are the Ruffini type of the endings, so, or Ruffini's endings, whatever you will call it. So in this case, if the other ones were more associated with the superficial layers of the skin, yes, the Ruffini, for example, is very much dependent on the localization in the deep regions of the skin, as you can see here. And as you can see, particularly that it is so much let's like that branched and encapsulated many parts there, that it can be covering a larger area, for example, compared to the other type of the receptors, which are localized only in one place, and that's all. And you need to have more amount of these receptors at particular region. The important thing, what will be very much looking like for example, the Merkel's disc. Yes, here we do have a slow adaptation. Okay, that's what I want you to remember also. The slow adaptation of the Ruffini, and as a result, again, as it was in the case of a Merkel's type of the disc, you see that it's important in the signaling of the continuous states of the deformations of the tissue. Yes, for example, prolonged touch, some particular pressure for a long time that is applied on the tissues, and so on. So you can see that they also say that Ruffinis are also found in a part of the joint capsules, as you can see. And most commonly, they're helping us in the identification of joint rotation, particularly the degree of joint rotation, you know. Yes, but most commonly where we can find the Ruffini types of the endings are mainly the deep structures or deep layers of the skin, rather than that much the part of the tendons and the joint capsules. Okay, the next portion, what do we have? This is our beloved Pacinian corpuscle, because Pacinian, we've talked about that many times, and we said about that Pacinian corpuscles that they are encapsulated. That's why we call them corpuscula. I do believe it's clear. We do have it localized literally in both the superficial regions of the skin, as well as in the deep regions, as well as in the part of the fascial tissues. as you can see here. And most important thing, what we know already very well, that these type of the corpuscles are very fastly adapting, as you can see. And what is most important here, that because it is fastly adapting, okay, in the case of the vibratory type of the sensations, you can see the ones which are fastly changing, because what is the vibration? It means that we do have the frequency of the applied stimuli is very high, yes? That's why we can feel the vibration. So as a result, the vibration and other rapid changes in the mechanical state, that's what is mainly dependent or can be identified by the Pacinian corpuscle. Why? Because it is literally one of the fastest in the adaptation. It means that every time it meets the new stimuli, and this new stimuli can be very fast and very frequent, that's why the vibration is here, to propagate this information, and we can identify it, or our CNS can identify it as the sense of the vibration. Okay. So the next portion, what do we have here? As you can see, how everything is propagated. I want you to remember all of these parts. So starting with the part of the Meissner corpuscles, as you can see particularly here, as well as ego-dome receptors, as you remember, yes, hair receptors, Pacinian corpuscles, the Ruffini ones, they are like, how I want you to remember it, they are very complex. Yes, they are very specialized. As a result, the type of the nerve fibers which are associated with that senses sure will be the large one, the myelinated one, and will conduct the information very fastly. As a result, you can see that that the type of the nerve fibers which are propagating this particular information is from 30 to 70 meters per second. So we can go back again to this, to this nice, to this nice table. I told you, we will come back to that information many times through the whole semester. And again, you do have here the information about the types of the myelinated or non-myelinated fibers, as you can see. Yes? So as a result, hair receptors, vibration with the Pacinian corpuscle, for example, hydrodiscriminative touch, which was very much important in the case of, for example, Meissner's corpuscles, and so on. What is happening here? You see that all of them are associated with the type A beta nerve fibers, which we have somewhere between 5 to 15, and their velocity of propagation is from 30 up to 80, no, okay, they say 70 meters per second. Do you see? As a result, this is for you easier to remember. Let me go down. It was 23, if I remember correctly. Yeah, here it is. Now, when we talk about the free nerve endings are the simplest ones, yes? As a result, the type of the nerve fibers which will be propagating, these are also the simpler, less myelinated or unmyelinated at all. And as a result, you can say that you can see that free nerve endings, which are giving us these tactile receptors, they are using either A delta type of the myelinated fibers, as you can see, with the velocity, the slowest velocity for the myelinated type of the fibers from 5 to 30 meters per second, as well as you can see that some of them are even propagated through the type C unmyelinated fibers at all. And as a result, we do have 2 meters per second here, the propagative maximum. That's what we can have, because in the case of the unmyelinated, it's from 0.5 meters per second towards 2 meters per second. And as a result, that's where we do have the also the information, for example, and I made it also for you very boldly, that the part of the sensation of the tickling is most commonly associated with the C type of the fibers. And this particular information you can see from the previous chapters, and the part of this, where is the, yes, here back again, you can see that the part of a tickle, as you can see here, some deep pressure and a touch are mainly associated with the A delta type of the fibers, and as a result 5 to 30 will be the propagation, and here in the case of a tickling it's even less than 2, sometimes 2 and the less. Now to continue with the next portion here, so that's what I want you to remember. That's what comes in case of the midterm questions. Please remember that. Now about the detection of the vibration itself. First, let's understand what is the vibration, to understand how we can identify it. You know, how can we not feel it, but you know, perceive this type of the sensory modality. And here comes the idea that we said the vibration is simply like a touch or even some pressure, which is frequently applied on the surface of the body or internal organs. Yes. So as a result, in this case, you see that, for example, the Pacinian corpuscles are the one which are the most common in the identifying the vibratory type of the movements, which are seen from 30 to 800 cycles per second, meaning that many times we do have the reapplication, let's like that, or reapplying of the stimuli on the same region. You see? So that's what we call this vibratory type of the sensations. And as a result, because the Pacinian corpuscles, why Pacinian? Because they are very fastly adapting, meaning that with the new and new cycles, we will have the new propagation of the stimuli. Yes. As a result, this type of the, can you imagine how fast is the like 800 cycles? Well, I'm sorry, something has happened with my computer, looks like, with my internet. Can you hear me, guys? Can you see my screen now? Okay, when it stopped, I mean, like, because I was just continuing and then I saw that there's something not okay. So did you understand about vibration, or we need to go through it again? What do you think? Or you want me to talk about this part, about the nerve fibers? Guys? No, yes, understood, yes. My goodness. Okay. from the nerve fibers. Okay. So again and again, could you go over the vibration? Yes, yes, I will repeat everything. So I will start from this portion, we'll say it, and then we'll go through the vibration back again. So as I said in the portion of the transmission of the nerve impulses, yes, there are most commonly the large myelinated type of fibers, meaning that there is the large diameter, large myelin sheath, and as a result, a very fast propagation of info. So as a result, Meissner's, Ego-Dome, as you can see here, Pacinians, Ruffinis, all of them are using A beta type of the nerve fibers, okay? And as a result, the propagation is very fast. And here I would say that in the case of the vibration, which I was talking about, what is the vibration? It's the repetitive application of the stimuli on particular area, yes, or on particular point of our body. And as a result, in this case, what is happening? We do have the repetitive signals, these vibratory signals, which can be from 30 up to 800 even cycles per second. So logically, first of all, what type of a receptor should I have here? The one which can percept so many times, so many changes, yes, so many stimuli. So as a result, it should be highly and fastly adapting type of the receptor. As a result, the Pacinian corpuscle is the best thing in this case to propagate the impulses, to percept the stimuli of the vibration. But from the other side, if imagine that I would have connected the nerve fiber, which is just, for example, A delta or C fibers, which are very very slow type of the fibers, yes, their propagation in case of the A delta is just from 5 to 30 meters per second. But in the case of the others, even which are coming from for the free nerve index, for example, with the C type, which are unmyelinated, it's even less than 2 meters per second. Can you hear me, guys? Can you see me? Dear student, my advice would be just leave the call and come back again, rejoin it, because it happens sometimes that it is having some technical issues. Well, as I said, so in a case of the vibratory type of the sensations, yes, it is very logical to have a larger, faster propagation rather than, for example, in the A delta or the C types of the unmyelinated fibers, yes, because we said that in this case the propagation, as you can see, is less than from 5 to 30 in the case of A delta, and in the case of the C, this is C fibers, this is particularly less than even 2 meters per second. Although you can see here that this particular A beta nerve fibers, you can see that which are used for the Pacinian corpuscle, their capability of propagating the impulses is literally very high. You can see that it can be up to 1,000 even impulses per second. So as a result, the Pacinian corpuscle is one of the best representative for the vibratory type of the sensation. Although you can see here, there is always exception from the rule, and we do have some Meissner corpuscles also to detect also vibratory type of the sensations or modalities, but with a low frequency, meaning that here we have 2 to 80 cycles per second. Okay, so sorry. I'm sorry. So 2 to 80 cycles per second. You see? So as a result, when there can be the question in the midterm examination that, you know what, this particular type of the vibration is detected by this, with this, you need to find out what is the vibration first, if it's high frequency or low frequency. If it's the high frequency, your answer will be always the Pacinian corpuscle, yes? If it's low frequency, then your answer will be, in this case, the Meissner's corpuscles most commonly. Now, I said, and I showed you this particular, this particular slide, saying this is the most important considerations, and according to that, we are going through. So we've talked about the receptors. We've talked about what type of receptors we can have, what type of sensory modalities can they perceive, where they are localized, yes, and we even talked about the type of the afferent neuron, the first order neuron, what type it is, and what is the velocity of the propagation in this case, yes? Yes. Now let's talk about the types of the information which can be propagated here. And here, from the perspective of the physiologist, they subdivide again all of the ascending tracts and all of the sensory information into two parts again and again. And these are dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, and again the part of the spinal thalamic system. So now we'll talk about the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, okay? And here you see, do you remember one of you asked me that there are some differences, you know, because, okay, we say that except for pain and temperature, everything is dependent on the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway. That's true. That's a general classification, you know. But the idea here is that, you see, that what type of the senses, what is the touch sense, and here comes the distribution even of different modalities of the touch is present here. As a result, please remember that when we talk about the touch sensations, very delicate ones, with a very high degree of the localization of a stimuli, this information is passed through the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, okay? When we talk about the touch sensations, which are requiring transmission of fine gradations of intensity, you see, very special ones, very delicate ones. This everything goes by the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway. And I can even tell you more. Dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, according to the evolution, is newer tract compared to the anterolateral type of the pathway, you know? So the anterolateral is much older, is much more general, let's say like that, and more more developed one is the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, okay? Plus, it's like the idea of the comparing the computers, okay, to each other. So that's why in this case the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway is literally dealing with most accurate type of the touch and discrimination of the touch, this very fine one. You can see here the part of the vibratory sensations are very much associated with the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway, which is clear, I do believe, yes? So you see the movement against the skin or on the skin. So again, most commonly, it's one of the very much fine touches, yes? And if, like, in the period of time, how any object is moving on the surface of the skin, it is felt very precisely, you see? And again, dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway is the propagatory pathway in this case. Then we do have a part of the position senses from the joints. Again, the part of we said that, we know that, dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway. And a part of the pressure sensations, which are related to the fine degree of judgment of how big is the pressure which is applied on the surface of our body. Yes, in this case we can identify if it is something strongly applied or vice versa, lightly applied, like, you know. So these everything can be identified with the help of the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway. Compared to the part of the anterolateral, okay, pain and temperature is clear. We know that anterolateral pathway does it. But look what is most interesting part here is that we still have some touch, but the touch is crude, as you can see here, okay? Just to identify where it is. But what is the intensity of the touch? What particular part of the body had the application of the touch, and so on. It's very difficult to be identified by the anterolateral system. okay? As well as you see tickling and itching sensations. Tickling and itching sensations, uh, guys. Tickling and itching sensations are also propagated by the spinothalamic tract, by the way, as well as the portion of the sexual sensations, as you can see. To be honest, most of these things are like, evolutionary. Sure, at the beginning, while the organism would not be that much differentiated and that much developed, like pain is important as a protective mechanism. Sexual sensations are important as a part of the simply reproduction. Okay, thermal sensations again are important to identify to for the protection. Okay, and some touch where it was and so on. It's also identified on the like a very crude one and so on is very much associated with the anterolateral system. Till now, do you have any questions? So it was more or less clear, yes? Good. Very well. So what I'm thinking right now we do have the finishing of this 1 hour. What do you think? Should I start now and then continue, or it's better to finish now and then start at 5? They are on the drive, Hassana. They are already there. You can find them in the presentations which are uploaded by me. So just in the body systems to find the folder of the presentations and enter there. There are many presentations on the different parts. Okay, I can, there are not too many here, but I need to speak not small amount, of the time. Okay, let's do like that. I would like to have some rest right now because I need to drink some tea because I have the problem with my throat. So in 1 hour, I will be back and we will continue, okay? And we'll finish with a part of the dorsal column medial meniscal pathway as well as the anterolateral pathway, okay? And that's where, that's good, Anirudh. It's good to have a tea, that's true. So as a result, that's where we'll finish this part of ascending tracts. And we will continue with a part of the motor tracts there for tomorrow. And that's where we'll finish all of this idea of what is the propagation and so on. It's okay, Sobia. My name is Lana, so it's not a problem. Yes, I'm listening. They are uploading. I know, my dear. Today, not today, sorry. 2 days ago, it was Monday or Tuesday, I had the meeting with coordinators, and they are uploading.